Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm not sure if you can see my screen. We're doing different things with our Zoom, but this is Maria West. I'm the Communications Director for CalRecycle, and I'm joined today by Christina Files, and she'll introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Christina Files. I'm the campaign manager for the I Recycle Smart campaign and an information officer too, working with Maria at CalRecycle.
Okay, so hopefully you've tuned into at least one other of our jurisdiction trainings. If you have not, we highly recommend you check out the December 7th training because it's pretty comprehensive on the different campaigns, what we did, what our research showed, and you'll learn a lot. And you just, I think it's just about an hour total. So you can get a lot of information from that. You'll find all the jurisdiction trainings on our YouTube page. Next slide. All right, so we're going to go over the campaign a bit today, but today's training session really focuses in on the influencer, basically the influencer strategy, and then the influencer content. So we did something different this time than other campaigns that CalRecycle or the Waste Board or DOR have done, and we moved with what's happening in the media landscape. So we'll get into that, and then we'll give you some recommendations and best practices and resources if you'd like to do something like this yourselves. All right, so if you've attended the other trainings, this will be pretty much repetitive, but the California Packaging and Organics Recycling campaign was designed to cut waste, get people recycling correctly and composting. And by compost, we mean recycling their food scraps. It's a word that's come to mean to a lot of people in California, recycling food scraps, even though I have a compost bin. So for me, it means something a little bit differently. So we had the goals of educating Californians, promoting positive behavior change, and then in a unique way, measurably improving Californians' actions. And if you'd like more information on how we did that measurement, I recommend you checking out our pilot program training that we did last week that will be up on our YouTube page shortly, that really gets into the measurement and what we saw in the trash as a result of the campaign assets that are available to you. So we have been talking a lot about community-based social marketing, and we did, and when I say we, I mean Christina and some of our other folks at CalRecycle did a couple of specifically Southern California and Northern California focus groups of jurisdictions, people like you who do marketing campaigns for their communities. And what we heard was that most of them didn't move the needle on recycling and what went into the trash and what went into the recycling bins. But the ones that did see a difference really kept pointing to community-based social marketing, which is getting to be more known just in general across the nation. And there's a few different tenets that we're really promoting and letting you know how we did, and that we recommend selecting the behaviors to target. That's not just less kind of contamination, but it's breaking it down into the steps. What are the specific steps you want people to change? And then identifying the barriers and benefits of those selected behaviors. So barriers to the behaviors is really important. For instance, if you want people in apartments to recycle their food scraps, do they have a place to put the bin? Is there a way to address that issue? Is there a nearby place that they can dispose of it or recycle it in the apartment? Or is there only one food scraps bin in the whole complex that they have to walk a long ways to? So this addresses some of the things that are keeping people who might otherwise treat this as something they do from easily moving to your new behavior. And then additionally, developing strategies that reduce the barriers to those behaviors, as I said, while simultaneously enhancing the benefits. So you want to really highlight what's great about it or what the benefit is to the community or the family, while reducing those barriers. So we took on pilot strategies that would help us figure out what was most effective, so you could have your strategies and your messages that would be most cost effective, and then broadly implementing the most cost effective strategies And in community-based social marketing, you want to continually evaluate if you can. But our campaign is coming to an end, so we won't have evaluations after this round of final ones. Next slide, please. So why influencers? In some ways that might seem like something that you wouldn't think government agencies would do, but actually people are getting their information in entirely new ways. There's a lot fewer people going to the news or even watching network TV in real time. And many people get most of their news, believe it or not, from social media. Some people say I get all my news from TikTok. So basically, what's most important is that people are getting their information from places that they trust. And nowadays, those are trusted messengers. And many of those are influencers. These are people that people relate to or aspire to be like, that they interact with their posts on a daily basis, so they feel a connection and they trust them. So 66% of people surveyed, and this isn't, I don't think specifically to California, but in the United States, believe that my country's government leaders are purposefully trying to mislead people. So that's, it may not be a surprise because we've seen, different numbers for politicians, but as government agencies, we are not always trusted. Those who are most trusted are scientists among government agencies, but then there's also a couple of different groups that are also trusted messengers: farmers and firefighters. However, as I was saying, the influencers are often uniquely trusted in an individual's life. So many California government agencies are using influencers to reach broader audiences. They can be creative, funny, and tell authentic stories, or organically put your content into the content they have been creating and that people are used to seeing from them. They tend to have really loyal audiences, and they help build your brand credibility. And they can even increase your followers. The people who are following the influencers may start to follow you. So they also help you generate fresh organic content across media platforms, and they boost your organic posts. If you do social media much, it's hard to get organically without putting money behind your posts. It's hard to get much engagement, so they can really help you with that. So these are just a few of the other state departments that have been using influencers. So we all know about the COVID campaign. We saw that in many different venues, and they used influencers. This was especially useful for them because there were so many people who weren't really trusting government sources. And so hearing from people that they did trust really helped to increase vaccination rates among many communities. The DMV has used influencers. Save Our Water, which is California's water conservation campaign, they've used some influencers and had some really funny, interesting, and kind of unique ways of just sharing their message. And California Community Colleges has also used influencers. So it's something that the path is paved for CalRecycle to do this as well. Next slide. So how community-based social marketing informed our influencer strategy. So they demonstrated how to recycle properly, and that means shaking it out, which is what we pivoted to from our empty and dry campaign when we had a backlash from some people thinking we were telling them to rinse the recycling, and then also collecting food scraps. They addressed barriers to recycling, where to find local information on what's recyclable. That's a big one, with so many people confused about what goes in the blue bin. How to battle odor and pests with food scraps, which is a major barrier, if not the major barrier, to people collecting their food scraps in their kitchen. And how to get their families involved, because we saw that a lot of times the mothers or wives were the ones who were in charge of recycling. And so this was a way of encouraging people or giving people ideas for how to get their whole family activated to recycle together. And the influencers demonstrated waste reduction using reusables and refillables, which is one of our favorites because that's that of the 3 R's. That's the reduce, which is the best way to start reducing what we're sending away, is to not make it in the first place. And then reducing food waste with meal prep and freezing. Next slide, please. So the influencer messaging strategies, we used research, the research that we have done into these different topics you can find in that December 7th training. But we wanted to raise awareness of recycling in general and the, our activating people to recycle with I do my part, I recycle smart slogan, which came from our research and the sense from Californians that they had a pride in recycling. And then improving their recycling behaviors, shaking it out, separating food scraps, and then driving traffic to irecyclesmart.com, where there are just a myriad of different assets, different sources, types of information, videos. There's interactive facts, there's ways to reduce, and there's also one page that's general principles on what's generally recycled and what's generally not recycled, and then what you should look up locally, and then a page that shows you how to reach your local rules. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to get a little bit into the key campaign messages before handing it over to Christina. So the messages that we're talking about with the influencers are: it's easy for everyone to recycle, and recycling is the easiest way you can fight trash pollution and climate change. So the contamination for the curbside bin was about shake it out. Food and liquid residue turns recycling into trash. Emptying out recyclables is easy. So we, when we pivoted to shake it out, we just showed people shaking out a container so that they didn't have a sense that they had to rinse it and dry it or put it through the dishwasher, as some people thought. And then this wasn't a major message, but we did encourage people to place the container upright in the bin. So if there was liquid left in it, that it still wouldn't get on cardboard, that kind of thing. Food scraps collection, recycling food waste is the easiest way you can fight climate pollution. As our director has said many times, putting your banana peel in the food bin might be something people can do very quickly right away, and getting on a ZEV vehicle might take a little bit longer, might be a bigger effort. So this is something a step you can easily take. Setting up a bin for collecting food waste is easy as well. So that's something that we wanted the influencers to get across, to just make that shift so people could see, oh, this is something that I can easily do. Next slide. So proper sorting. Recycling in California varies by community, as you know, and that irecyclesmart.com is the easiest place to find your local recycling rules. We have links to all of your community programs there. And then to place unbagged recyclables in their curbside bin. This isn't something we pushed in the campaign, but it's something that the influencers could incorporate into their posts without, a lot of extra effort. We can't also waste reduction. So this was something that was a part of the initial goals for the campaign, but it's harder to really put out ads like for this, but we want to get people making less trash. So we also want to get people being conscious of the types of packaging that come on their purchases, in addition to hopefully reducing how much they purchase or how many single-use items they purchase. And then showing people how preventing food waste is easy is a great way to save them money and save the amount of food that rots before it gets eaten. So we also did a little holiday campaign influencer portion that celebrated the holidays without harming the planet. And encouraged people to recycle their boxes and use up their leftovers when the celebration was over, to treat it like it's not over until you do those two things. So we had a couple of really easy, simple messages. We didn't want anything complicated. So we encouraged people to choose bags and wrapping that didn't have shiny coats or glitter, to let them know that ribbons and plastic wrap and cellophane can't be recycled. And then that cardboard boxes can be flattened and recycled, but most other materials, including all these listed here, are not recyclable. Next slide. And then additionally, on the organics, to recycle their holiday food waste. So for many jurisdictions, people are just starting to get into this mindset of recycling their food waste. So this is just, there's so much more food at the holidays, and you probably know that the trash increases by about 25% in the US during that time. So we wanted to get people thinking about recycling their food waste, and then setting up that easy to access food scraps bin in the kitchen. And then additionally, reducing waste. People are thinking about, more at the holidays. So thinking about people, getting people thinking about being conscious about what they're buying, shopping the refrigerator and pantry first, planning those meals ahead of time, and then cutting packaging and product waste by reusing bows and gift bags, and choosing to ship online purchases together. And then gift experiences, which is something we really want to promote around any gift giving activity, where people, this is something that we've heard is popular in places like Japan, where they don't have as much space in most housing, in most homes or apartments. So they give it gift experiences. And we'll share, one of the influencers had a really cool video piece of content on how a unique gift experience to give, and that was really powerful. So I am going to now hand it over to Christina. She was very pivotal in selecting our influencers and in the whole brief development with Edelman, the public relations company, who has really been the lead for us on driving this messaging and figuring out the influencers. So I will let Christina take it from here.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, so as Maria mentioned, we worked with Edelman for our English influencers. We also worked with a company called Census to help us select Spanish-speaking influencers to really target the Hispanic community. So for our messaging, we developed a brief. We're going to give you a link to it so you can see it in detail. It's basically just a list of instructions on all the key messages and how we would love these influencers to incorporate them into their content. It just keeps everybody on track so that everyone's aligned with what the messages are, how to stay on brand, make sure everything is super successful. And then from that, they develop their content for the campaign. So how did we select the influencers we worked with? Now, I'm sure you guys are chomping at the bit. You want to see some of the influencer content, and I promise it is coming. We're going to show you some of our influencers. We really wanted to start by looking for people who are doing home-based content, because we were really focused on trying to improve recycling and especially curbside recycling, reducing that contamination, focusing on collecting food scraps in the home, proper sorting. All of those things require, home-based content. So we really wanted influencers that had a following that was interested in learning how to best utilize their home, maximize their space, really lifestyle, DIY, family type people. And we also really wanted to look for people who had diverse backgrounds that really reflected all of California. So like we mentioned, we went for English and Spanish speaking influencers, but also different ethnicities, cultures, just wanted to get the full breadth, because obviously shopping, creating trash, creating food waste, they're all going to vary, pretty widely. amongst different types of people. We also did just kind of a quick screen to make sure that all of their historical content was appropriate, that we weren't partnering with anybody that had any problematic content. When we interviewed them, we really wanted to make sure that they had an interest in recycling. A lot of these folks already had sustainable content on their channels. So we were really looking for people who were aligned with, the values and messages that we wanted to communicate. We focused on Instagram influencers because Instagram is a very video heavy platform, and it's really kind of the king for the influencer movement. And a lot of the content that we shared, we were able to do a co-branded sharing, so that when they published it on their channel, it actually appeared automatically on our channel on Instagram as well. We targeted micro influencers and mid-tier influencers in English and Spanish. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more and explain what that means. And this is really going to help and in terms of budget as well. I know one of the things that everyone's wondering is, how expensive is it to work with influencers? So let's break down a little bit of the logistics when you're looking at the landscape. Now, there are micro, mid-tier, and macro influencers, and those terms really have to do with the number of followers that somebody has. If you have 10,000 to 100,000 followers, you're considered a micro influencer. These influencers tend to have a really, strongly established position in their community, in their niche. And they often have a lot of engagement on a really specific topic. Mid-tier influencers tend to have more followers, and they have a broader reach. We opted to go for these two groups rather than macro, because macro influencers tend to promote content that's not as focused on behavior change. So it might be shared interests, it might be comedy, it might be things that are of interest, current events, commentary, that type of thing, but they're not specific to behavior change. Micro and mid-tier influencers are more likely to share content that people look at and go, I want to try that. I want to do that. Okay, so how did we choose these influencers? Like I mentioned, we looked for sustainability, wellness, or some kind of conscious living. We were looking for people who would really have, they would be willing to adopt those better recycling practices. We really looked for California-based influencers and making sure that they not only were in California, but most of their followers were also in California. If you start searching for people involved with recycling or sustainability online, you might find some really popular influencers, but they may be based in other places. That becomes a problem when you're talking about local recycling rules. So that was a really key piece. And we wanted to make sure that there was no partnerships that they had in the past that might contradict CalRecycle messaging. So we avoided things like car partnerships, kind of gas guzzling partnerships, or companies that have a lot of, plastic single-use waste, things like that. We wanted to really target the widest variety of Californians as we could. So we went for gender, ethnicity, bilingual, family-oriented, Gen Z, DIY. We kind of just did a broad sweep of our community in California. And we also wanted to see people that had a high engagement rate. So 1 to 3% is kind of standard. Anything higher is ideal. An engagement rate means that people are clicking on the content, liking on it, commenting on it, sharing it, clicking through to a website. That's all engagement. And we wanted to make sure that the Spanish-speaking influencers we worked with were in California, and they were targeting Californians who are also bilingual or Spanish speaking. Okay, let me just talk a little bit about some of the logistics. This is where working with Edelman and Census was really, really beneficial. They were able to help us with reaching out to the influencers and giving them the formal offers. Once the offers were extended and they were interested, we set up a contract with them. and then scheduled a briefing call. And CalRecycle was able to share the brief and the passion and enthusiasm that we have for recycling, answer questions, brainstorm some ideas, and then the influencers took those and created content. Once they created content proposals for us, they would essentially send us a proposal, and it was usually a couple of bullet points. Hey, I'd like to do a video involving my kids. We're going to show how to recycle in the kitchen with bottles and cans and cardboard and plastic, and we'll demonstrate how to look up irecyclesmart.com. And we would say, yes, that sounds like it's on track. And then they would send us the first draft of the content and we would review it. Often we were flagging minor things like making sure that they pointed out that the recycling rules they were following were local to them and that they had confirmed what they were putting in the bin was recyclable in their community. And making sure that their voice was positive and upbeat and not shaming or being negative in any way about people who weren't doing it right. Then once we gave the feedback, they would come back with another edited video for us, and then it would be scheduled for the Instagram channels. So our general market content, when we send this out, you're going to have links to all of this in our PowerPoint, as well as links to all of the influencers we partnered with and all of the content. But I'm going to show a couple of our top influencers and their really exciting content they created for us. Angela Kim is one of the mid-tier influencers that we worked with. She is Asian American. She has a cute little munchkin that she includes in her videos, and she did a really compelling video on how to recycle really, really fast, just multiple clips of how to recycle and reduce waste in her home. And we had really great engagement and really high number of views on this. These numbers for us, 65,000 views, are much higher than the average view on a CalRecycle created video that we would post to our own channel. So once these influencers created the content, we would then share the content to our channels, and we would be monitoring the comments to see what the engagement looked like. We've got Christopher Keys. He did some great content with his kids, talking about how to sort and reduce your trash waste. Josiah Smith, another really funny guy with his family, and he did some great content on teaching kids how to recycle, how to use the website, and also how to really understand the impact that you're having. We also partnered specifically with Hispanic influencers. So here we have Jorge. He has a lot of content really focused on DIY and working with kids specifically. His account is called Reality Changers, and he does these fun little interview bits where he is interviewing his kids and talking about different topics. So in this case, he did some content around, helping his daughter understand what could be recycled. Ellie did a great video about how to shake out recycling and make sure it's not contaminated after she did a cute little cooking video. Javier did a food waste reduction video for us. And Cindy also did a food waste and reusable video for us as well. Okay, so here are just a few quick stats for you. Angela Kim overall had the most impressions on her content. She had a really high engagement rate, around 8%, and the average cost per view was 7 cents, which is really great. If you compare that to some of the other channels that we were using throughout the campaign, these are really competitive prices per view. Christopher Keys had some great impressions. He had a really high engagement rate, a lot of commenters. So I'm going to show you some of these influencers. So let me go ahead and show you Angela Kim here. I'm going to refresh. So one of the nice things about this is that, she has the upbeat music in the background, but all of the key points are also in these text overlays, which is really helpful. People often scroll social media when they are in places like doctor's offices and they can't have their sound on. This next influencer, her name is Anamika, or sorry, not Anamika, Anika. And we gave some really detailed talking points about climate change and food scraps. And I'm going to go ahead and refresh so you can hear her talk about that.
Talk about trash, more specifically, food scraps. Californians can now recycle food scraps. Why do you need to do that? Well, when food scraps are buried in landfill, they release climate-heating gases. And in California, that causes devastating wildfires, droughts, and air pollution. By simply recycling your food scraps, you can turn them into new products like compost and biofuel. So I've added a food scrap bin in my trash pullout. The closed container and the charcoal bags help keep the trash pullout free from odors. I just collect all the peels and food scraps on a plate as I prep and cook, and then I put it in the food scrap bin. You can put things like peels, eggshells, apple cores, and even half-eaten vegetarian food. When it is full or it's trash day, we just take it out and place it in our green bin for pickup. It is the easiest way that you can fight climate pollution. You can check out more about it at irecyclesmart.com.
She did a great job of literally taking all of our talking points and putting them into a video and demonstrating really clearly how to recycle food scraps and how to overcome the barriers with odor by showing that compost bag that goes inside of her trash pullout drawer. This is Christopher Keys, and he did a great video on how to pack school lunches and use the reusable containers. Go ahead and turn his sound on.
Of how I could get things delivered in less boxes. That may mean getting them a few days later. Now, being that California has a huge food waste problem, it's imperative to find ways to reduce our waste. Try meal planning. Not only will you reduce your food waste, but you will actually save money. Furthermore, store everything in glass containers. It will not affect the flavor. It'll last a little bit longer. More importantly, it's going to save you money and save the environment. Last but not least, when prepping for lunch, not only will the kids love a cute container, you'll be helping once again to reduce your waste. This is the way. Our children will inherit our planet, so let's start today and leave it the best we can.
So really, positive and upbeat content there. Josiah, this is a really fun and funny video.
I just wish I could meet a guy who's into recycling, who wants to save the earth like me.
It was definitely a woman who sparked my interest, but I also didn't want to be confused anymore about recycling. So I went to irecyclesmart.com and learned everything I needed to know and more. Hi, I found this bottle in your yard. I was wondering if I could recycle it for you.
Yes, please. Wait, you recycle?
I do. In California in 2020, they collected over 77 million tons of trash and only recycled 42% of it.
Yeah, we're short of California's 75%
75%.
recycling goal.
Yes. Wow. You want to go out with me?
Yes, we can recycle together.
Let's do it.
So that was a cute little video. I was really impressed with how he incorporated the 75% goal into his video in a really fun and compelling way. This is Elle Renee, and she has some fun content.
I think I want to go surfing this morning. Hold up. Before you get out there, preventing plastic pollution starts at home. Check. At the beach. And before you surf, you can always pick up a couple things. Toby.
So she did a really good job of taking, the type of content. We chose her really specifically because she's outdoors a lot. So her content was her out hiking, showing how to use reusables, surfing, showing how to do beach cleanup, and then also recycling and reducing waste at home. This is really on brand for her. This is the type of content people are looking for on her channel. And she really incorporated this in a really organic and authentic way. I also love how she really included the statistics that we gave her into these little captions on the video as well. This is Derek, Dad with a Pan, and he does quite a few recipe videos. So what he did is he took his cooking video and he incorporated the food scrap steps into the video as well. I'm going to skip through a couple of these, but we'll give you links to all of them. Okay, this is Jorge.
They do take space, and you can rip it like that if you want. It's really important when you are recycling to
Let me restart that. Jorge and his daughter.
They show you guys, a way that our family recycles, as well as to show you guys, what to not put in the recycling bin, any way you want to have the recycling bin. Definitely always want to recycle plastic water bottles, but you want to make sure they are completely dry and there's no liquid inside of them. No plastic bags or plastic wrap in the recycling bin. That goes in the trash, guys. Paper cartons and cardboard are great to put in the recycling bin, but you want to make sure that you find them out because they do take space and you can rip it like that if you want. It's really important when you are recycling to make sure that any leftover food or liquid is wiped out of the container, since the food and liquid can contaminate everything else in the recycling bin. Before this video ends, just wanted to thank CalRecycle for the collaboration and helping us, raise awareness about the importance of recycling. Let us know in the comments about how you guys recycle at home. You can also find more local info on what you can and can't recycle at iRecycleSmart.com.
So all of our influencers are directing people back to iRecycleSmart.com for more information. Ellie did a great video on scraping out and emptying contamination at the end of a video with her cute little munchkin at home, and they were baking together, and she was able to demonstrate how to recycle and how she's teaching the next generation how to recycle. She's one of our Hispanic influencers, so her content was posted in Spanish as well as in English. Javier did a video on reducing food waste and also recycling food scraps. And he shows several different types of food scraps and a different type of container that is underneath the sink. This is actually the one that Maria was referencing, earlier on about doing.
What if we shape one that can?
Let me restart that. Doing a gift experience.
Here's an experience gift that any outdoor lover would appreciate. One that can create many memories throughout the year. The possibilities of visiting places like Sequoia, Arches, Joshua Tree, Channel Islands, Yosemite, and even Glacier National Park are endless. Because this holiday season, we have the chance to skip the extra trash and unnecessary stuff and give experience gifts instead. Here's an experience gift that
And what's really authentic to her content is these are clips that she has shared throughout her channel already, and she's grouping them together and marrying it with one of the reduced waste messages. This is another reduce waste video that really focuses on recycling properly and how to eliminate contamination. And in our presentation at the end, we do have links to a couple of documents that will have all of our influencers and all of the content that they created for us that you can view to take a look at. And just want to remind everybody that we will be taking questions at the end. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. So here's a couple things to consider if you're thinking about influencers. Budget. We did do a digital marketing presentation a couple of weeks ago. Video will be posted shortly. We'll email it out with that presentation. And we broke down budgets by, small, medium, and large. Now, influencers can range anywhere from, a couple $1,000s to, a lot of money. Now, obviously, macro influencers are going to be looking for more for their content. You're paying for their audience. You're paying for the market share that you're actually reaching and targeting. So keep that in mind. We had quite a few very affordable influencers that we partnered with because we focused on micro and mid-tier influencers. So that's something to really keep in mind. The platforms that you choose are also going to influence the audiences that you're going to reach. We chose Instagram because it does have a very wide audience, and a lot of that content can easily be shared on Facebook. TikTok is also an emerging audience where you're going to see a lot of influencers creating content. I already mentioned the size of influencer is going to impact a lot of things: the type of content, the audience, how much trust they have, how likely they are to demonstrate a behavior. And authenticity, you really want to make sure you're choosing influencers that really look like they believe in the messages that they're sharing, and that it's something intrinsic and aligned with the content they've already created. You also want to keep track of how these influencers are performing. How many clicks are they getting? How many views are they getting? And really monitoring the comments has been really insightful for us to see what kinds of questions are coming up. What are people thinking and saying and commenting when they see these types of messages? And that's been really helpful for us to be able to clarify different messages around recycling. So when an influencer gets a question they can't answer, they tag us, and then we pop in and answer the question for them in the comments. Couple of best practices. There is a new collaboration tool on Instagram, I mentioned it earlier, that allows an influencer post to appear both in their feed and in CalRecycle's feed. And that was actually a really great way for us to immediately get that content really amplified. It's also allowed us to see the metrics immediately rather than relying on the influencer to share them at a later date. Hashtags are really important in social media and really help get people to the kind of content they're looking for. So we really were focused on using hashtags. Couple of other just, housekeeping things. When you're working with influencers, you do have to comply with FTC guidelines if it's sponsored and paid content. So they need to be tagged with ad or sponsored hashtags within the content so that people know that they are being compensated for that message. And competitors and recognizable brand names should not be featured in content without permission. So in our brief, we actually included a list of things, no logos, no brand names, no promotion of a particular product, and no disparagement of a particular product. So if we had somebody focusing on reusables, then they focused on talking about, silicone snack bags, but not a particular brand of silicone snack bags. In terms of us monitoring and managing the content, we interacted with the content within 24 to 48 hours so that we saw the best amplification of the messages. We immediately shared it to our stories so that our followers would also see it. And we would comment on theirs and answer questions in the comment. We would respond, repost, and invite people to like our page as well. Okay, like I mentioned, we do have our briefs. I'm going to show you those in a moment, and some links to our content. So let me just give you a quick peek. And this will be in the presentation. I'm just waiting for my Zoom menu to disappear. Thank you. Okay, so this is our influencer brief, and it just takes you through everything that we provided them that influence that helped them informed their ability to create the content. So the background, the key messages, some sample creative content on our website, and the types of messages that we wanted to see by category. We also had one specifically around the holidays. This focused on things like making sure that you're using reusable packaging, make sure that you are planning for food waste at the holidays when you're shopping. We also have a link to all of the influencer videos so that you can take a look at the full breadth of everything that we had created. And then also for our Spanish influencers as well. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up our presentation here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, open up our chat, and we can start taking some questions. I'm looking for the chat. Here we go. Okay, so a couple quick questions. Let me scroll back to the top. Just a comment, influencers request a large sum payment, which smaller counties cannot afford. That is true. There are influencers that may charge quite a bit. There's a couple of things that I think you can do to consider maximizing your budget if it's small. One is hop on CalRecycle and share our content. Jump into the links that we're going to give you for all of the influencer content that we created and immediately start sharing it on your channels. Share it in your Instagram stories, on your Facebook account. Those are all free to do and don't require, any investment. The third thing I would say is look for really, really, really micro influencers, people that are unique to your community that may be willing to partner with you without a financial investment because they're aligned on that particular topic. Maria, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, another one is just checking in, like really following some influencers, especially some of either these or ones who are focused on recycling and sustainability. And to whatever degree you can, I mean, I know for a lot of small jurisdictions, you may not even have one full-time person on the marketing, but it could be something that folks in the office do at home. Honestly, a lot of our videos feature the children of the public affairs staff. So we really do things at home ourselves. Especially during COVID, we did a lot of that, but we're still working from home. And we really encourage you to take an inspiration from influencers, and you can create really authentic content that way. But then for jurisdictions that are maybe a bit larger, you can find some people, as Christina said, who are, locally well-known. We have in Sacramento, we're not a huge town, but we're a big community. But we have some DJs that, have taken up the cause for recycling and things like that. So sometimes there'll be people who are known to different communities who would have an impact, who may be willing to work with you for free or for, and not some kind of nominal fee.
Yeah, I think if you visit our website as well, I'm just going to flip it around so you guys can see. Maria mentioned the videos that we're creating, and if you're on the food scrap recycling page on iRecycle Smart, you'll see down here that we have some videos that we created about how to recycle. And this right here is one of our employees' son, and we filmed it in their kitchen on an iPhone. So that's the nice thing about influencer content, is it's supposed to look really authentic. It's supposed to look really relatable. The other thing is maybe look for an intern. Hire an intern to do some influencer content, college student who might be interested in, marketing, recycling, things like that, and put together some parameters and see what they come up with. Next question, how long was the video review process after receiving the first draft? Do you have any best practice tips for efficient and productive review of video content within a public agency?
I would say don't have me review it. Because I have a lot of other stuff on my plate. I give a lot of credit to Christina because she was able to turn around the reviewing on this really fast. So what are your tips, Christina?
I think that thank you for saying that. I think the biggest thing is making sure that you're communicating up front what you're looking for, so that the review that you're giving is as minor as possible. The our two campaign contractors, Edelman and Census, would provide us links, and they provided us a link to the content as well as a Word document that had the full script in it, so that if we wanted to make any suggested edits on the script, we just had to turn track changes on and make some tweaks. So if the way the contract was written, and this is pretty standard for influencer contracts, is that they had an opportunity to do one round of revisions. So that meant that they could re-record the voiceover or change the overlay text. So we were looking for things like making sure that it was accessible. So I pinged a lot of times that the overlay text was too small to read, or it was white over a light background. So we had to ask them to change it into a black text over a light background, or put a solid, circle or rectangle behind the text. And then we would just be as specific as possible. So often I would just write notes and say, it would be really great if they did X, Y, and Z. And then that way they didn't have to guess what we might be looking for. Out of all of the influencers that we worked with, we only had one that we decided not to run with because the back and forth just seemed to break down. So it seemed to be pretty successful to do it that way. Okay, great presentation. I see how you selected influencers based by criteria. How did you find and locate the influencers? Did you use an organization to do this? How were they compensated? How much were they paid? And were they paid by content post or by views? Okay, there's a lot of questions in there. There's a couple of things that we can answer, and then I'm going to just queue up Edelman and Census as well to get ready, and we'll bring you on board in a moment to talk about how to find influencers. Because we did work with Edelman and Census. Census is a great company that helps us find non-English speaking influencers to target other communities. And Edelman, as we mentioned, is our PR company. The contracts were written based on the number of pieces that they created for us. Most of the influencers created one video, a reel, if you're familiar with Instagram, so an in-feed video, a reel, and then stories that were anywhere between 1 and 4 frames. And that bundle would cost us anywhere from, I want to say, $2,000 to maybe $8,000 or more dollars, depending on the type of influencer and the audience that they had, the reach that we were going to get for that. And keep in mind with influencers, these are self-employed independent contractors. So they can essentially charge whatever they want to, and they're going to come and explain what they feel like the value of their content is. So we paid for these bundles, and we paid through our contractor. So let me see if I can bring on our campaign folks to talk about how to find and source them. Okay, I'm going to call on Maya. She is from Edelman. Hi, Maya. Welcome aboard.
Hi, thanks for walking through this.
Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about how to find and locate influencers and to approach them to potentially partner with?
Yeah, so in terms of the influencer discovery process, which is what we call it, we have a few influencer tools that we use. So our tool that we use is called Captivate. It's essentially a platform that has a whole roster of influencers. You're able to sort by the type of content that they create, who their audience is, where they're located, and also look at some of their engagement metrics just on their feed, what that typically looks like. And that's where we usually get started. I think as we get more feedback from your team on the type of influencers that we really want to focus on, we'll also take a look at some of our historic partnerships with influencers on campaigns that we've worked on. We'll also do some digging, just manual digging on our feeds, maybe just looking at hashtags that pertain to recycling and sustainability and all of that. So it's kind of a mix of everything to really get the best of the best folks.
That's awesome. Okay, and let me just, before I bring Laura on to see if she has anything to add from Census, is that Captivate with an 8 in it, .io? Is that the name of the tool? I was just Googling. Okay, I'll go ahead and put the URL in the chat for everyone so that you guys can all see that. And Laura, do you have anything to add? This is Laura.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm so sorry my camera is not on. I've been having connectivity issues all day, but happy to be here. Yes, to add to what Maya has shared, we actually use a platform called Clear. It's with a K. You can find it just through Meltwater if that's what you search, because they also offer other type of services, but we use it specifically for influencer marketing. And what we do is very similar to Maya's process, but we also really look at, who has been great previously for other campaigns. Specifically, if this is a government campaign, then we want to make sure that maybe they previously had a great campaign with another government client. And if the return looked great in terms of visibility, impressions, and they were just really a good partner, then we usually keep those in mind and look at just our internal, I would say, our relationships. But what we do on Clear, if we're not necessarily just looking for influencers, we really use that tool to verify if the partners that we had in mind are the right partners. And what I mean by that is, do they have a good engagement rate? Do they post multiple times a week? Because you don't want to partner with someone that posts once every 6 months, right? Because that essentially means that their audience isn't engaged. So what these tools do are just very straightforward in the sense that they verify whether or not this partner is going to be a good investment. So you can see and find an influencer that, has great content and maybe they have a decent following, but then when you look at the hard concrete numbers, maybe their engagement isn't high, or maybe they're not gathering all of the different stats that we want as a whole in order for it to be a successful partnership. So that's why these platforms are important, because they help us really determine if, hypothetically, Christina's an influencer, we see her content's great, and then we take that next step to do that hard verification to ensure that we are really moving forward with a good investment from the get-go.
Great. That's a wonderful clarification. So I went ahead and put the link to Clear in the chat as well for everyone. And just want to clarify one thing about what we said earlier about looking for influencers. In the world of influencers, there are, different types, and some of them really are people who, many, if not most, earn a living from influencer content. Some of them are willing to partner and brand with anybody, and they're just for hire. Others are more selective and picky with who they partner with, and that group is where we were looking for. We didn't want just to partner with anybody. We wanted to partner with people that we felt like would really reach the audience and really aligned with what we wanted to do, but also reached a demographic of people that we may not be, reaching. Okay. Hopefully that helps answer some of the questions about how to source influencers. Have you ever really had to redirect an influencer's first content creation? For example, has anyone ever missed the mark for what you were requesting, and how did you manage that experience? I would say everybody was on the dartboard, but not everybody hit the bullseye right away. And usually the redirecting that we did was pretty minimal. We had a few people who maybe were confused about what was, is or isn't recyclable. And sometimes it's not even that it's misleading. It's just that you need a second set of eyes to take a look at it and see how it's landing on another audience. So I think that our redirecting was relatively minimal, but our brief was also really detailed about what we were looking for. We did have one influencer who talked about it being confusing to recycle and people wanting to do the right thing. And the tone of voice, it came across to us as a bit condescending and negative. And we were just concerned that it wasn't going to land well. And so we went back and forth, and it was kind of hard to tell if maybe that was partly how she spoke. And so just realizing, it doesn't always work out, right? It's just not always the right person. And you don't know that until you start working with them. Can grant funding from the state be spent on influencer promotions? I am going to defer to Maria on this. Do you have an answer?
I'm going to defer to whoever you're speaking to about the grants. That's really a legal question, and we don't have any knowledge of that. So I would just refer you back to whomever you are speaking to about your grant.
Yeah, I know there's some education and outreach grants, and this is education and outreach, but that is definitely a grant question. Does choosing values aligned influencers meaning that we're preaching to the choir? Any thought to looking for influencers who reach those not already interested in the sustainable lifestyle? It's a great question. When I say values aligned, it's not necessarily people who are preaching to the choir because their content is not necessarily focused on sustainability. What I mean is that they are focused on home-based content, DIY, family-based content. So their followers are going to be interested in, oh, I already follow Angela Kim because I like her cooking videos, and I like the way she buys organizing content, and I like how she teaches her little munchkin how to do different things. So recycling then fits within that genre of content. Most of her content is not about recycling. I don't think any of our influencers did a lot of recycling content before we worked with them. Maria?
Well, I want to give you a lot of credit again. When we first started this, the first round, I think we were seeing a lot of Southern California based yoga lifestyle type influencers. And you said you wanted to see a lot more representatives of different types of California communities. So Christina put a lot of time into reviewing potential influencers and finding people who were not, all looking a certain way or from just a certain community, and again, preaching to the choir, but people who were DIYers or people who were foodies, all these different things that are primary types of topics for why people follow influencers, but still weren't out of alignment with a sustainable message. So they were generally looking, to be responsible or to show people a positive way of living, not just a high cost lifestyle, but people who are looking to really show people a way of having a fulfilling life that actually makes a difference in the world. So I think whatever what you said, I think is great, and I think it's important to think about your community. We had a unique challenge of the entire state, the most populous state in the country, with regions that are so incredibly diverse, just in all the different challenges that they have, in addition to the different walks of life. So you may find it easier to find representatives of different types of influencers that fit your community, which may have only a few different target audiences.
Right. Okay, there's a couple of questions here that are really similar, and I'm just going to summarize them. And they're basically asking about influencers reaching a specific region rather than the spillover that might occur. So this is a really good question. And for us, as Maria mentioned, it was unique because we were doing the entire state. And if you are running different types of, advertising, you run into this as well. If you run radio and you have a small community, it's going to spill over into other communities. And it's the same with influencers. As I mentioned, there was research done to ensure that they were based in California and that their audience was primarily based in California. But our messages were also relatively broad enough and universal enough that the spillover didn't hurt. And what I mean by that is we directed everybody back to our website to find their local information. And we focused on things that are true everywhere. Reducing contamination and recycling is a true message everywhere. That does not depend on the collection system. Talking about collecting food scraps and dealing with odors and things like that, that's universal. What we did not get into was really specific messages like, what type of collection system do you have? Do you put your food scraps in a separate bin or in your green bin? Is it in a brown paper bag or just on top? We didn't get into any of those really granular messages. If you choose to do something like that, then I think you need to find a very, very micro influencer. So somebody who might be a local community leader. Sometimes you'll have folks who are, running a local newspaper or local lifestyle magazine for a community who would be interested and willing in doing a partnership. But it also could mean that if you pick someone that has a slightly larger regional influence, that you could partner with other jurisdictions on some of these general, messages. And again, it could be maybe you stand up a regional website for that purpose, or you use iRecycle Smart and direct people to that so they can find their local information. How do we know that the engagement, clicks, views leads to actual behavior change? That is a great question. I think the easy answer is that we do not have any data saying that the influencer campaign led to specific behavior change. Having said that, we do have data from our pilot that says when you target with specific messages that teach people how to recycle correctly and address the barriers that they're facing, that it does influence behavior. And we did see change in the contamination rates and in proper sorting. So it's very difficult to measure this type of campaign in terms of behavior change. But we do know that the type of content that micro and mid-tier are doing in general are more focused on things that people might be interested in adopting, the lifestyle hacks, this is how I do it like me kind of content. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Maria?
I think it's just that this type of messaging really is trust-based, and people have for many years just tried to avoid ads. And so there are certain venues where you can't, but or you have to pay extra to avoid them. But with these folks, these are people that they've sought out and they trust and they look up to in many ways, or they see as peers. So it is an interesting question. Doing something like this and measuring it, if in the state of California, would be, a massive effort unless you did a local pilot program. But that's harder because you may not have an influencer that's influencing everybody in your small area. So if you're interested in the measurements that we did on this campaign, I do encourage you to watch the pilot program jurisdiction training that we did a couple weeks ago. But on this one, no, we don't have a measurement, and the pilot program is really the first time that it's ever been measured as a state that we've ever measured an advertising campaign.
Yeah, the other thing is we do have a survey that we have put out to just measure and confirm the impressions for the influencer content. So we will get some metrics back, based on that. And you can also see how content is landing by looking at comments to see if people are saying, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to try that. That gives you kind of an idea of whether that really inspired and landed well. There is a question, it's slightly different here. Influencers have the option to promote their post in a specific region, right? depending, let me back up. Instagram, sorry, trying to figure out how to answer this question. The influencers are not boosting their post. And when you put an organic post out on your feed, it goes out to the World Wide Web. So there's no way for someone to target their content unless they actually do a paid advertisement type of a post, which is not what we did. We sponsored their organic content. So there really is no way in that capacity to target a specific region. If, however, you took, content and you put it on, say, Instagram or Facebook, and you posted it as a sponsored boosted post, and I realize I'm using the same words here, so I'll say a boosted post since that's Facebook vocabulary, you can get into, targeting it, but that's different than traditional influencer campaigns. Would you advise working directly with influencers and only using a third-party company? I don't have any experience working directly with them, so I can't really weigh in on that. I will say that probably the considerations are how comfortable you are with, developing the contracts and managing that, managing the creative timelines, how many you're working with at one time. It was really nice being able to have the contractors, having Edelman and Census handle all of that for us, so that all we really had to do was weigh in on the content and the strategy. And they managed, the scheduling. They were there for tech support. If we had an issue or a question about analytics, they were able to provide all of that. So with some strategies, I think you definitely gain something by working with people who have an area of expertise. I would do it again with, a contractor. But if you are doing, one or two influencers in a small community, then maybe you don't need that. I don't know, Maria, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I mean, it would be nice if we could give you some turnkey tools for it, but I don't know that that's something we'll be able to do. With the state procurement process, we would not be able to work with individual influencers.
Right. How do you deal with an influencer maybe switching up their brand after already taking on your campaign, such as a situation where they might do recycling with us, but also work with a company that is not so recycling friendly? Good question. We took a look at the content that had already been posted, and really that helped us weed out a couple of things, whether someone was really just interested in sponsorships to make money versus aligning with, things that they're interested in. And also in the contract, you can write clauses about, not working with other, conflicting companies during the duration of your campaign. And every contract is a little bit different. So some of our contracts with influencers run for a certain length, others are more open-ended. So it really gets down into the nitty-gritty of the way that you write your contract. After the contract and the campaign is over, you really don't have any control over who they partner with in the future.
But, we did influencer briefings, and which were really fun, and we got great questions. It was actually really inspiring. And that's one of the things that you can say when you're talking to them, not just put it in the contract and then just let them know the why this matters. And I think it's just important to really drive home who you are as a government entity that's working to improve, the local community, and why it matters who they partner with.
That's wonderful. Okay, we're winding down on questions and getting some questions about how to get in touch with Edelman and Census. So Laura and Maya, if you would just send me your website URL and email, that would be very helpful, and I can get that out in the chat to everybody. And just looking to see if there's any other questions. And I don't see any other questions coming in. So just scanning to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right. Well, we'll give it just another moment to see if anyone has any final questions. It's been a lot of fun. We've really enjoyed, working on this influencer campaign, and you can reach Edelman at edelman.com. So I'll go ahead and put that content here. So edelman.com, and Maya Allen is the one who spoke and shared a little bit. So I'll go ahead and put her email here as well. And then I'm just waiting for Laura Guerrero to put her content in as well. Got a comment. It was a great presentation. We're so excited and glad. If you guys have questions, feel free to let us know. You can always email us at irecyclesmart@calrecycle.ca.gov. We would be happy to answer future questions. And like I said, if you have any desire to start using influencer content, you can pop into these links for the list of influencers that we have already partnered with and share that content to your channels as well. And that'll give you some fun influencer content.
And we always encourage you to share what we have on our social media channels. We try to be creative and relatable, and we're trying to make things as short as possible now, as we see that people have, less and less, there's less and less time to grab people's attention. I want to say that we've really, it's been a very intense time doing this campaign. The campaign will stop running as of January 31st. This will be our last jurisdiction training, but we are still available to you. So we have really tried to let you know that we are here to support you. This department is working harder than ever to try to reach our recycling goals and to also expand as the legislature sees fit and the governor see fit to expand programs and to get those programs implemented as quickly as possible. So we always want to hear from you on what would be helpful for your marketing campaigns or any other educational tools. We have our own crew. We've been staffing up. We're about to have a new video content creator who has very high quality videos and photos that will help us take our content to a new level. So, and we're hiring more Spanish language staff as well. And we also have the ability to translate into any language if there's assets that you'd like. We can't do video and radio because that would require a whole new contract, but we can at least get information translated for you and often different content that we have on our social media channels. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Just please see us as an asset to help us all increase our recycling rate together and move California towards a circular economy. And if you have any other suggestions for us, we are all ears. We have really fun, creative sessions where we're trying to figure out how to bring the best information to your communities. And no one knows your communities better than you do. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Maria West at calrecycle.ca.gov, or Christina at christina.files@calrecycle.ca.gov, or send it to our general box opa@calrecycle.ca.gov. But we're here for you. It's been really quite a ride, and we're very proud of what we've accomplished with Runyon Saltzman and their subcontractor Edelman. Census has been really fantastic too. We're really grateful for all the work, and anything that we can do, if we can present for you or just make this easier for you, we'd like to do it. And I also want to clear something up, and we're going to put something on our toolkit to make it clearer. All of the campaign assets are available to you to use as will help your local work. So if you want to download those files directly from the toolkit on the irecyclesmart.com site and use them for social media, or even on your website, or even on bus tails or any of that, or if you need higher resolution assets, just for anything, let us know if you're going to print something. But we do have a couple of files here, and I think there's been some confusion that people think they need to get our legal permission to use the assets that we have available there. And that's not the case. The two guidance documents, there's a guidance and instruction document. And those are just if you want to create your own content and put Turner the recycling turtle and or our slogan, do your part, recycle smart, or the CalRecycle logo on any of your own content. That's what these are for. It's not to use the advertising assets. You can use those, and you can add your logo if you'd like, and your website too, if that if you want to just, you can do it in Canva. You could slap that over over the iRecycle Smart logo.
Absolutely. We have the, I just was opening up the guidelines, and right here it says that you're able to use those. And then we also have the instructions on how to use them. So for the different channels, they are in English and in Spanish. So those are available to you guys. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in. So thank you everybody so much. And that's a wrap.
Thank you.